My poor dad, my PhD father, he always said to me, he says, I'd be a rich man if I didn't have you kids. And I said, well, Dad, not my fault you had kids. I just can't afford it because I have kids. And the more he said that, the angrier I got. So when I met my rich dad at age 9, he says, well, that's why your old man's poor, because he's lazy. He thinks his PhD is going to carry him. He says, everybody can say, I don't have money, I can't afford it. He says, that's why he's poor. He's lazy. But my father kept going back to school, Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. He never learned any of this stuff. They still don't know it because most teachers want a paycheck, pension, and tenure. They want job security. So the mindset is different. Only lazy people use their own money. And that's because I have spent much of my life raising capital. But the reason I had to learn to raise money was because I had no money. And so if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in there, my rich dad always said, never say, I can't afford it. And it was my rich dad and many of my teachers subsequent to that, they said, lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. So instead of figuring out how to raise money, it's just really easy to be a loser. And I call it losers. It pisses them off. Because we all have the power, if we wanted to not be poor if we learned how to raise money. So the reason I say only lazy people use their own money is because it takes much more intelligence to raise capital. And so I've never been able, ever since my rich dad, since a little boy, my rich dad forbade me from ever saying, I can't afford it. He says, figure out how you can afford it. How can you do something? Figure out how you can do something. So over my lifetime, most of the projects I've started, I've never had any money. I like not having money because it forces me to think. I get creative. I have to educate myself. I have to talk to rich guys. Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? I've never needed money because if I need money, I figure out how to raise it. So today you guys have crowdfunding and all that. I mean, I don't know what that stuff is, but it's easy to say I can't afford it. All the poor people say I can't afford it. All the poor people say, well, it's tax the rich. All the poor people are saying, well, give me a free education, free food, free schooling, free manicures, free pedicures. There's laziness, my opinion. I just want to say this to all millennials. People complain about you guys, especially the older generation, the boomers. I'm a boomer. But the fact is that when I started looking into what's going on with the boomers, I have this to say to all of you, which is from my point of view as a boomer, as you guys are. So when I looked into what your situation is, we had a thing called Social Security. So they put nothing into Social Security because it came out, I think, 1933 or 36, whenever it came out. Social Security is now bankrupt. Look at this chart over here. This is Social Security. So the boomers now are facing a world without Social Security because Social Security is broke. And the more I looked into, boomers and millennials, this is another thing that you guys face, is that expenses are going up of America. But what's happening is income is coming down. So you guys are in very serious trouble. That's like a family where they keep spending more money, but the father or mother are not bringing money in. So what we're passing on to you guys, World War II and the boomer generation, is an estimated $180 trillion deficit to as high as $225 trillion when you count Social Security and Medicare. So, over my lifetime, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's because I didn't have money as a young person that I learned how to raise capital. And it's really quite simple. You have to find an asset that's worth more than me. So what I do is, I started off looking for this one little piece of real estate. I found an excuse, this 1-bedroom, 1-bath condominium on the beach in Maui. And I found an excuse for people to give me the money. All I had to do is assure them I'd pay them back. So my first deal was an infinite return deal. I had no money in the deal because it was 100% debt. It was an $18,000 condo. You can't touch them for that much anymore, but the economy was bad. So I buy this $18,000 condo. The guy wanted 10% down. You don't need higher math. 10% of 18,000 is how much, sports fans? $1,800. I could have used my money. I had the money, but that would be too easy. Well, there's always three sides to a coin, heads, tails, and the edge. So which side of the coin are you on? From my side, it's fair. But this is the difference. Everybody can do the same thing I do because the tax laws are for everybody. We don't say, well, the tax laws are only for the rich. No, the tax laws are for everybody to use if you have the right financial education. And the reason I'm an advocate of financial education, without that education, you have to pay taxes. You see, very few people will buy what I do, make $1 million and pay zero tax. Taxes are incentives. The reason I get tax breaks for real estate is because I provide housing. The U.S. government wants me to provide housing, wants me to provide jobs, wants me to borrow money because that's how money is created through debt, and provide oil and food. I get huge tax breaks. Everybody can do the same thing if they had the financial education to do it. There are many people in my position, so-called financial gurus, who say live totally debt-free. And there's other people who say cut up your credit cards. And that's good advice for certain types of people. So you should definitely cut up your credit cards if you can't control your spending. Everybody was saying get out of debt, live debt-free and all that. And for most people, that's really good advice. If you have no financial education, live debt-free and all this. But the biggest mistake that people make is they call their house an asset. And if you understood a financial statement, which is rich dad, poor dad, assets put money in your pocket, whether you work or not, and liabilities take money from your pocket. So the average person, even if they have a PhD from Harvard, they're buying liabilities they call assets. So it's because Wall Street and the Federal Reserve Bank and all those guys are telling you what to do. Invest in what you love. I love business. I love real estate, and I love gold and silver. So I invest in what I love. Most people say, do what you love, but I rather invest in what I love. But I love being an entrepreneur. I love investing. I'm always looking at new businesses, new deals. When you look at the financial statement, that's like a scorecard. It's like your golf scorecard is your financial statement. But as you know, our schools teach us nothing about financial statements.